over to Rebecca Gast from NSF, who is moderating the NSF panel.
Thank you very much, Danette. I'm going to give a relatively short presentation on NSF Antarctic program updates and information. There are several other program officers here, and I'd like to have them speak up and say hi to you. So we could start with Vladimir.
Hi to everyone. Vladimir Papitashvili, Program Director for Antarctic Astrophysics and Geospace Sciences, likely the oldest member of that Antarctic science section, almost 22 years. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Then we have, I think, Will.
Hi, good afternoon. Will Ambrose. I'm co-program officer with Becky on the Antarctic organisms and ecosystems, and I've been with the Antarctic program about 3 or 4 months, but I was previously with NSF on the Antarctic section for a few years. Vladimir's been at NSF longer than I have, but I suspect we're in a similar age bracket. So looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Will. Kelly.
Hey, I'm Kelly Brunt. I'm a program officer helping out Paul Cutler in Antarctic glaciology. And I'm an IPA. I'm a what we used to call a rotator back in the day. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. And Dave.
Hello, also rotator or IPA. I'm the program director for Antarctic Oceans and Atmospheres section.
Thank you. So as Will said, I'm one of the program officers for Antarctic organisms and ecosystems, and I am also an IPA or rotator. I'm going to start sharing my screen to give the presentation. Okay. Let's see. So this is an update on the Antarctic program and some basic information that will hopefully be of interest or use to you. So great, there are boxes in the way. There are several things that OPP has been trying to do to increase accessibility and inclusion in Antarctic research. We recognize that there is a time and resource burden that are required when collecting samples and data in the field, and there are hurdles to having people participate and access the Antarctic. So we've begun several initiatives to increase these opportunities and accessibility for new researchers to engage in Antarctic research, both in traditional field deployment as well as in new pathways that we'll talk a little bit about. All of the samples and data and results of research that goes on in Antarctica are required to be stored and curated and shared openly. And some of the actions that we have been taking are to encourage the reuse of this information in new ways. There are physical sample collections. There's the Marine and Geological Repository at Oregon State, the Ice Core Facility, Polar Rock Repository, and the National Center for Marine Algae and Microbiota at Bigelow, as well as the Smithsonian that has collections of meteorites and invertebrates. There's also a big push for open access data that you can get through the USAP Data Center or the Polar Geospatial Center or the EarthScope Seismic and Geodetic Archives. There may be other discipline-specific repositories, and you can talk to program officers to find out more about where those are. So one of the primary things that has happened in the past 2 years is that we have released a solicitation for the program that supports Antarctic research not requiring fieldwork. There is no deadline for this. You can submit a proposal at any time throughout the year. We try to review them and then hold panels in a relatively reasonable time frame in order to get things funded. But we do need to have a critical mass of proposals, so please submit them whenever you have them finished. We're trying to be more responsive and supportive of the research community by providing these opportunities, especially since travel has been restricted and is difficult to get to for Antarctica. We're also putting efforts into developing cohorts for early career researchers, and this is through the Postdoctoral Research Fellowship Program, the AGU Postdoctoral Fellowship Training Program, and the Polar Science Early Career Community Office. PSECO has hosted several information sessions to help postdocs and early career scientists get to know each other and to find out what opportunities there are in Antarctic research. We're encouraging non-polar research to begin engaging, and we're offering opportunities for them to gain experience with polar researchers, whether this is in the field or in working on reusing data. The initiative aims to develop an inclusive and diverse leaders within polar research, and we're trying to open new pathways for partnerships. So again, we encourage the reuse of existing data, rescuing inaccessible data. This is a problem. It takes a long time to bring some of the data back into formats that are usable for everyone. We would like people to leverage physical and non-physical samples, all of this to help advance Antarctic research. As many of you know, or some of you know, there are rich repositories of data. People have collected a lot of information and samples, and there seems to be a great diversity of projects that could be taken on or developed. There's a specific solicitation that supports the development and use of open source software and tools that are critical for achieving polar science objectives. Again, we're trying to help broader participation, support cyber infrastructure that's needed to use Antarctic data, and to broaden participation by researchers not traditionally in Antarctic research. There's also a solicitation that fosters the development of engineering and technological solutions for working in icy and underwater environments. As it becomes more and more expensive and challenging to access the Antarctic field environment, we're interested in the development of smart and autonomous platforms that can remotely collect and transmit data year-round. And this can go into open data repositories for use by all members of the community. And again, this initiative is trying to bring members from the engineering community, technology, and other disciplinary sciences together to increase this accessibility. So coming out of COVID, we do still have some protocols in place for when people are deploying for Antarctic fieldwork. This is a bit of a moving target, but our plans for the 23-24 fieldwork were developed based on community feedback, based on last year's deployments and recommendations by a subcommittee of the Advisory Committee for the Office of Polar Programs. And this link provides direct access to those protocols. I'm just going to give you a few of the basic overall important aspects. At the gateway cities and on the vessels, RAT testing or PCR testing will be conducted. If a person is positive, they will be required to follow the local isolation regulations before continuing on deployment. Once at stations and on vessels, if participants become ill and test positive, they will need to isolate for at least 5 days and then follow masking protocols for another 5 days. For grantees and participants that are deploying to the Deep Field or South Pole Station, deployment from McMurdo Station, you'll need to follow masking protocols for 5 days prior to your deployment and avoid social gatherings. I believe you will also be tested before being allowed to go to the deep field or South Pole. There's a lot more information on the protocols that are posted online, so please take a look at those, and if you have questions, please contact your program officers. Some of you, or many of you, may be aware that recently we released a Dear Colleague letter with an update on our science support and infrastructure for this upcoming field season. There's a lot of information in there, but due to the compounding constraints of funding and access and COVID requirements, the season will be significantly curtailed. For the next 3 field seasons, August 2023 through March of 2026, already funded science projects will be prioritized to the greatest extent possible to try and get through the backlog of projects that have been deferred for years due to COVID, as well as those that have had deferments because of COVID projects needing to go to the field. While we will continue to accept proposals involving field work, USAP will not be able to support science exceeding logistics support level 2. And this is field work that can be easily accommodated and does not require heavy airlift on continent or South Pole deployments. If you have questions about this, you can contact your program officers. We also have a, well, I'm getting to this next. In the DCL, there were some points made for each of the stations and the vessels. McMurdo was unable to accommodate new and large field teams until the second half of this decade, but smaller efforts starting in the 25-26 field season are potentially supportable. South Pole Station is saturated. Already funded projects need to be completed, and there's required critical infrastructure and maintenance activities that have to take place. Proposers seeking support for new projects should contact their cognizant program officer. Palmer Station is also fully allocated during the peak summer season, but can support smaller projects early and late in 2023, 2024, and 2025, as well as overwinter projects. The Nathaniel B. Palmer is fully allocated in 23-24, but will have availability in later years for new science proposals. The Gould will expire, the charter will expire in June of 2024. NSF is exploring options for the vessel, but right now the MVP will be serving to the station, Palmer Station, as well as the LTERs. Again, if you have questions about your projects and proposals, please contact your program officers. Our field solicitation proposals right now require a concept outline to be submitted prior to the submission of your full proposal. And this is usually going to be in January of the year, with the full proposals then in June. This concept outline describes the field work that you're interested in doing, and it allows USAP logistics to determine whether it could be supported or what levels could be supported. So this helps to allow you to revise your field programs to make them more potentially supportable. It also will let you know if things are simply not going to work. So long-term guidance from the Antarctic section. This is difficult. The Antarctic program has historically had a great track record of field-based research. But now we're going to need to start helping people deal with non-field-based projects. For early career people, diversify your portfolios. So consider opportunities in other NSF programs and directorates. And if you have questions about those, again, please contact us. We have some of that information. Consider opportunities at other federal agencies. Consider the broader application of your skill sets, and consider again that data and sample reuse. Also consider response times for field-based versus non-field proposals. Even if we are able to potentially support your field-based proposal, there are the potentials for deferments to occur. That doesn't happen in your non-field-based proposals or your non-field-based work. So if you're an early career researcher and you're concerned about building your research portfolio, consider those non-field-based proposals and non-field-based work. If you're trying to do field-based proposals, but you can't get to Antarctica, consider it in other environments that could be analogous to the Antarctic. Consider working in the Arctic, but this doesn't mean that you can all go flooding to the Antarctic science section, because they can't support everything that we cannot. Consider using, again, mountain glaciers or Alaskan environments as analogs, and consider partnerships with other divisions and directorates. There's also the potential to get into the field through other resources that are not USAC. There have been quite a few projects that make use of private cruise ship time, and private cruise ships are getting to be more cognizant of needing to have laboratory space and over-the-side capabilities, offering some citizen science opportunities. So if you have questions about this, we can potentially put you in contact with people who have had success with working with cruise ships, but please talk to program officers. There may be logistics opportunities for other providers to Antarctica, and you can leverage international partnerships. NSF GEO has lead agency opportunities where we actually co-fund projects with international science programs. And the primary ones that would come to mind are the UK, Germany, and Taiwan. For your continued career development, attend and organize community meetings like you're doing now, and volunteer as a reviewer and panelist. If you're very early career, we may not hit you up to be on a panel, but we'd certainly like to have you as a reviewer. So get in contact with us, get yourselves known and on our list, and we'll be in touch. So again, reach out to us as program officers. And finally, you may or may not know that we are in the process of an Antarctic research vessel design to replace the Nathaniel B. Palmer. This design evolution is continuing. They're still working on bridge positioning and area and conning towers. Main deck evolution, they're focusing on incubator spaces and location of tech workshops, as well as helo space potentially, and drone capabilities. After this, it'll go through some model testing and some more design review. The optimistic delivery and delivery date for the ship would be sometime in 2031. So this isn't something that's going to happen very fast, but it is in the process. And so that is everything that I have right now, and we will open it up to questions.